Boats are not cheap, but are they a good value? In a recent video, I discussed the reason why new boat sales are on the decline, and the biggest factor I found, but not the only reason, has to do with the cost. This got me thinking about what is the true cost of boat ownership. It might not be what you think it is. In this video, I'm going to show you how to easily estimate the cost of boat ownership, followed by a discussion of some unique benefits that boating offers to help you decide whether owning a boat is a good value for you and your family. So let's get started. Now, before I crunch the numbers, let's first take a look at the different types of costs that come with owning a boat. You've got fixed cost, variable cost, and then financial considerations. Fixed costs are the things that you're going to pay every year no matter how much you use your boat. This includes things like storage. Many people keep their boat on their own property, which of course will save you money. But if that doesn't work for you, the cost to store your boat elsewhere will depend on the location, size of boat, and type of storage needed. That is, whether you keep your boat in a wet slip, dry stack, or in a boat storage lot. If it's the latter, a general rule is to assume approximately $10 per foot. Next is insurance. The cost will vary depending on the coverage and location, but as a general rule of thumb, assume 2% of the boat's value. Registration fees are another fixed cost, but are not a huge factor. Most states require you to register both the boat and the trailer. Boats are usually registered every 2 to 3 years, whereas trailers are annual. Combined figure about $75 to $100 per year on average. Now let's talk about the variable costs, and these are the things that scale with use. First is maintenance and repairs. This includes things like washing and waxing your boat, performing routine engine maintenance tasks, and making repairs as needed. As part of this, you'll need to account for infrequent maintenance activities that you need to do, say, every 3 to 5 years, such as changing your water pump, replacing spark plugs, replacing your batteries, and your trailer tires. Now, if you do an online search, it will often suggest that you should budget 10% of the cost for maintenance and repairs. But in my experience, that is way too high in most cases, especially if you have a newish boat or you use your boat in fresh water. I would suggest that you assume 2% to as much as 4% annually. Fuel costs can be another big cost component, depending on the size of your engine and how often you go boating. But based on my calculations and knowing how long people usually operate their engine when they go out, you can simply, I figured out that you can simply divide your engine horsepower by 15 to get a decent estimate of the average number of gallons consumed per outing. Then you just multiply this by the typical gas price in your area and how often you plan to use your boat to estimate your annual fuel costs. Now, if you want to get a more precise estimate, I've created a fuel consumption calculator that you can use for free under the tools section of my Boater Input website. I will leave a link to that in the video description. Now, some places also have ramp fees to launch your boat. However, this varies greatly by location, and so I'm not going to account for that here. But if you know that you do need to pay ramp fees where you intend to go boating, then you'll want to account for those fees as well. Finally, there are financial considerations. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, even if you buy with cash, your boat is losing value every year. A simple way to estimate depreciation is to take about 5% of the purchase price per year. In reality, if you purchase a new boat, the first year depreciation will be higher, say 10 to 15%. In later years, the depreciation rate might be a little less, but let's just assume 5% for planning purposes. And if you finance, not all of your payment is a true cost, just the interest part, which will vary depending on the interest rate and the term of the loan. For a typical 10-year loan, you can assume that approximately 1/4 to 1/3 of your total payments will go towards interest over the course of the entire loan period. So, with these rules of thumb in mind, I will show you a quick example to see how the numbers shake out. So for this example, I'm assuming the purchase of a $25,000 boat. This is about the price you would pay for a new or newish 17-foot aluminum fishing boat, but the rules I share in this example would apply equally to other price points as well. So let's start by looking at the fixed costs. Again, as I mentioned earlier, most people store their boats at home, so I've entered 0 in this case. But if you're planning on storing your boat at a public storage facility, then you could assume $10 per foot. Insurance, as I mentioned earlier, is roughly 2% of the boat value. So that's what you would use. And in this case, 2% of 25,000 gives you $500. And then for the the registration for the boat and trailer, just assume $100. Again, maybe a little bit different in your area, but that should be close enough. Next, we'll take a look at variable costs. And for maintenance repairs, you should assume 2 to 4%. In my experience, I typically have averaged at around 2%, which is what I'm going to be using here. Again, that comes out to $500. And for fuel, that rule that I mentioned earlier, if you just take the horsepower of the engine divided by 15 times your price per gallon, and then the number of outings will give you your estimated annual cost. So in this case, that's $300. And then finally, our financial considerations. And as I mentioned earlier too, the depreciation rate will vary over time. Again, maybe as high as 10 to 15% year one, but we'll just assume 5% per year, just to make things simple. And so it results in a cost of $1,250. And then if you plan to finance, you need to estimate the monthly payments. And I have a tool on my Boater Input website that you can easily use to estimate this. And so for this example, I assumed a 10-year term and 8% interest rate, which is fairly common. So you plug that into the tool and it'll calculate the monthly payment. You then multiply that by 12 to get the total payment amount, which you can see here is $36.40. Now I've graded that out because the total payment is not your actual cost of boat ownership. Instead, it's only the interest portion. And the interest portion, again, usually is somewhere between a quarter to a third of the total payments over the life of the loan. So for this example, I'm just assuming 30%, which takes us to $1,092 in terms of interest. So if you add it all up, the total cost per year for a $25,000 boat comes out to about $2,600 if you bought it with cash, and around $3,700 if you financed it. However, to better assess the value, it's important to take a look at the cost per use. Now, the average boater uses their boat around 20 times per year. And so if you use that as your rate, then the average cost per use is, roughly between $100 and $200 annually. Per use. And that is similar to the cost to, say, take your family to a zoo or a local amusement park or, say, a Major League Baseball game when you factor in parking and snacks and things of that nature. Now, if you only are able to go boating infrequently, say, 10 times a year, then your cost for use will be considerably higher, although not too bad in this example, somewhere between $250, $350 per use. And if you're able to go boating, say, every week or 50 times a year, then your cost per use is quite low and actually comparable to taking your family, say you had a family of 4, be comparable to taking your family to the movies, which, each week, which seems like a great deal in my opinion. I would suggest you just, buy the boat and wait for the movies to come out on Prime or Netflix and make your own popcorn. Again, you can apply these same assumptions to various price points to help estimate the actual cost of ownership for a boat that you might be considering. So we just looked at the numbers, but value isn't just about cost. It's also about the benefits you get in return. And this is where boating really shines. Let me share the 5 things that make boating unique and, for many people, worth every penny. The first is relaxation and stress relief. When you're out on the water, the noise and stress of daily life just fades away. When I'm fishing, cruising, or doing water sports, I'm not checking my phone, thinking about work, or stressing out about the chaos going on in the world today. To me, it's one of the best ways to reduce stress. The second key benefit is quality time. Boats bring people together. Instead of everyone scattering or staring at screens, you're sharing the same experience side by side, fishing, tubing, or just cruising around. It's one of the best ways I know to strengthen family and friend connections. And for those of you with young kids, there will come a time, especially when they are teenagers, when they might not want to hang out with mom and dad. But if you have a boat, it's a good way to encourage them to spend time with you. Shocking, right? The third benefit is to enjoy nature. I love nature and the outdoors, and boating gives you access to places you simply can't get to from shore. I often see wildlife such as eagles and osprey, deer and raccoons, and tons of herons and egrets. And yes, I even see snakes every now and then, which I don't mind as long as they are not in my boat, which has happened before. Now, every outing feels a little different, and you're constantly reminded of how beautiful nature is, which is why I often stop just to take a picture when I am out on the boat. The fourth benefit is fun. Whether you're into fishing, water sports, socializing with family friends, there are a lot of fun activities you can do from a boat. While some boats specialize in doing one thing well, such as bass boats or wakeboard boats, others like pontoons are very versatile and can be used for a variety of activities. So depending on what you're into, chances are there is a boat for you. The fifth benefit is lasting memories. And this may be the most important benefit of all. I can remember fishing with my dad and my three brothers on Big Creek Lake outside Des Moines about 50 years ago, where we slayed them on beetle spins and Big O's, or seeing the joy on my kids' faces when they caught a fish on Lake Winnebago or learned to ski on Table Rock. Going water skiing and cliff jumping. By the way, you're not supposed to do that. With my family and new son-in-law on Beaver Lake in northwest Arkansas. Catching bass in the lily pads on frogs with Professor Gary in northwest Wisconsin, or catching two bass over 6 pounds each, which was my personal best at the time, only 5 minutes apart with my friend and neighbor Mark on our home lake, Lake Palestine in East Texas. Many of my fondest memories in life were made on the water. And it was not just about the fish or the activities that we were doing. It was about the people I was with at the time that made each so special. So that leads us to the conclusion. Is owning a boat really a good value? Well, let's recap. First, remember that boating has a mix of fixed costs like insurance, storage, and registration, variable costs like maintenance and repairs, and then financial considerations such as depreciation and interest. Second, don't confuse the purchase price with the cost of boating. Much of what you pay for the boat, you'll actually get back when you go to sell it someday. However, you do need to account for depreciation and also interest if you finance it. Third, the biggest factor in whether boating feels affordable is often how often you use it. Now, if you only use it, say, 10 times a year or less, your cost per trip might be pretty high. But with 20 or more outings, the numbers start to look pretty reasonable in most cases and comparable to other family recreational activities. And finally, as we discussed, boating delivers benefits that are hard to put a price tag on. Relaxation and stress relief, quality time with family and friends, the chance to experience nature in a way few other activities allow, and of course, lasting memories. So while boating isn't cheap, it can absolutely be a great value, especially if you get out there on the water often enough to enjoy everything it has to offer. Well, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please click on that like button. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel to get my weekly tips and insights to help you purchase, equip, and maintain your boat. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the water.